Hi everybody, my name is Sarah and welcome back to Educating Adventures. I'm sure most of you guys know that environments from all around the world are filled with beautiful plants. From the grasses of grasslands to the tall trees and forests to the plants that you might have in your yard. Most of these plants start out as a little seed and grow into the beautiful plants that make up these habitats. But where did these seeds come from and how are they produced? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, so let's go ahead and get started. One of the most important things that an animal can do during its life is to reproduce and have healthy babies so the population of that animal can stay large and healthy. Well, it's the same way for plants, though plants reproduce in a slightly different way. Most plants need to be pollinated in order to produce healthy seeds that can grow into new plants. Pollination can occur in a couple different ways. It can occur by wind or by animals. It can occur between two separate plants of the same species, or for some plants, it can occur within that individual plant. But before we get into all of that, we have to learn what is pollen. Pollen is a very small grain-like substance that's produced by flowers that's really important for seed production. So flowers have lots of very important parts, but two of the most important parts when it comes to seed production and pollination is the stamen and the pistil. The stamen, this is the male part of the plant, and there's usually several of them, and they kind of go in a circle around the inside of the flower. And at the top of the stamen, we have the anther, which produces the pollen. Now in the very center of the flower, we have something called the pistil. And this is the female part of the plant. And at the very top of the pistil, we have something called the stigma. Now the stigma must collect the pollen, and this is how that fertilization occurs and how fertile seeds are produced. So once pollen reaches the stigma, it travels down the rest of the pistil towards the ovary, near the base of the pistil, and that is where the seed is produced. And seeds can be produced in a fruit or a seed pod of some kind, and then eventually those seeds are dispersed around the environment. If you want to learn more about seed dispersal, be sure to check out our video on seed dispersal. But for now, let's get back to pollination. So at the beginning, we said that plants can be pollinated in lots of different ways. And we mentioned that some plants have to be pollinated by flowers from two separate plants of the same species. We call that cross-pollination, when the pollination must occur between two separate plants of the same species. Now there are some plants that use self-pollination, which occurs when pollen can be transferred between flowers on the same plant or even within the same flower. So we've got cross-pollination and self-pollination, but pollination can occur in lots of different ways as well. It can be moved around by wind or by animals. And plants that are pollinated by wind are usually a little bit different than plants that are pollinated by animals. So plants that are pollinated by wind, they don't really need to attract any animals. So they usually don't have bright colors, they don't really produce any sweet smells, but usually the anther sticks out of the flower, the part that has all the pollen, so that when the wind blows, it can easily pick up that pollen and carry it around to different plants. Animals that pollinate plants, we call them pollinators. And plants that require pollinators or animals to help spread the pollen around, they do have to attract them. So they usually are brightly colored or produce a sweet smell and are usually really full of nectar, that sweet liquid, because that's why the animals are coming over. As animals come over and they drink the nectar, they cover themselves with pollen, and then as they move from flower to flower feeding, they transfer pollen between these flowers. Bees, bats, butterflies, hummingbirds, these are all examples of pollinators that we rely on to pollinate a whole bunch of plants, including a lot of the plants that we like to eat, the fruits and vegetables that we enjoy. So once pollination occurs, plants are able to produce fertile seeds, and they can continue to grow all throughout the landscape where they live. Their populations can stay large and healthy, and just like reproduction is important for animals, it's also very important for plants. All right, you guys, that was a lot of information on pollen. I hope you guys stayed with us, and I hope you learned a lot. And I hope we see you guys next time at our next educating adventure. Until then, take care.